We will enter a pleas of not guilty and denials of the allegation.
That was PG&E's defense attorney, Brad Bryan, this morning, entering the company's plea of not guilty to felony manslaughter and several other alleged crimes. The company faces 11 counts after its power lines started the Zogg fire. The fire killed these 4 people in September of 2020. 8-year-old Fela McLeod and her mom, Elena, died running from the fire. Their neighbors, Karen King and Ken Vossen, also died in the small community of Igo in the hills near Redding. Brandon Rittiman just back from court in Shasta County today. Are these manslaughter charges actually going to go to a jury trial?
You know, a year or so ago when I talked to the prosecutors, they were predicting a trial was somewhat unlikely. But now it really appears that this is the course we're on. In fact, the judge set a trial date today for June 6th. So it's conceivable we're going to get to a trial as early as this summer.
We certainly are ready to go and prove our case.
And remind us why prosecutors charged PG&E with these crimes.
Yeah, no, so the Zogg fire started when a badly injured gray pine tree fell onto power lines in a windstorm. Now, PG&E doesn't dispute that part, but it does deny committing criminal negligence. Prosecutors beg to differ. PG&E has a duty to cut and trim trees that pose a threat to its lines. The DA says PG&E contractors marked this injured tree leaning over the power lines as a known hazard back in 2018. That was 2 years before it fell and started the Zogg fire, but no one from the company ever followed up to have that tree cut down.
Is there any chance that PG&E could avoid trial?
Well, I mean, they could always plead guilty. That would avoid a trial. The family of Fela and Elena McLeod certainly want them to. I talked on the phone with Susie Bewley. She's Fela McLeod's grandma.
Own up to what you did. An 8-year-old little girl, PG&E, took her life. Everything. And I'm angry. And I don't want to see it happen again.
That was heavy. I mean, the family even deciding that they didn't want to be in court today.
Yeah, I mean, it's very emotional from them, really, really hard for them to show up in court. They've done that at times in the preliminary hearing, but not today. Now, getting back to your question, though, about the trial, a judge ruled that PG&E has to answer for these criminal charges in a jury trial. PG&E does have the right to ask for a second judge to review that ruling. PG&E's lawyers said today they're considering that. It is a high bar. PG&E would have to convince the second judge that the first judge got something wrong. That doesn't happen very often, but even just going through the motions of that appeal of the preliminary hearing could delay this case some. We don't know at this point.
Okay, Brandon, while all this is happening, we did get something out of left field.
Yeah.
You're hearing from some PG&E workers that are upset about a video that the company released to its employees just hours before this manslaughter hearing where PG&E has to enter its plea. You got a copy of it, so let's go ahead and take a look at it.
Love will keep us together.
So we obtained this internal PG&E music video made for Valentine's Day yesterday. It features CEO Patty Poppy right here and other PG&E leaders lip syncing and dancing to the 70s pop hit Love Will Keep Us Together by Captain and Tennille. One PG&E employee called this video tone deaf to release it, especially the day before the Zogg case was due in court. The McLeod family felt similarly.
Very insensitive. Very, very insensitive.
Oddly enough, the lyrics of this particular song have some double meanings in the context of PG&E. For instance, the Zogg fire was started by a power line PG&E chose to leave on during a windstorm while it was turning other power lines off to prevent wildfires. And the song has this line.
When the others turn you on, who'll be turning you on? I will.
One PG&E employee told us the video's slick production is what really upset him. We are told to watch expenses, he told me, and then we see the executives doing this with PG&E's resources.
And the CEO, she put out this video the day before that she's supposed to be in court to plead not guilty.
Well, Patty Poppy actually didn't come to court today. She sent a company representative to be there to enter the plea. And there was actually a surreal moment before the judge came in. The bailiff came up to PG&E's legal team to ask for the company's thumbprint because a person who was charged with these same crimes would have to give a fingerprint and a DNA sample at this point in the case. One of PG&E's lawyers said corporate entities don't have thumbprints. I checked with the court administration. He was right. PG&E actually doesn't have to give a thumbprint. Just like PG&E didn't have to go to prison after it pleaded guilty to 84 manslaughter felonies in the campfire that destroyed Paradise, corporations don't have wrists to put handcuffs on, so their sentence was to pay a few $1 million fine instead of the 90 years behind bars that you or I would get for the same crimes.
All right, Brandon, thank you for the update. We appreciate it. As always, you can catch Firepower Money. All you have to do is go to abc10.com and you can catch up on all of Brandon's reporting. And we received a statement this evening from PG&E on that internal video. They say, quote, building a strong culture within PG&E is an essential part of the new company we are becoming, as CEO Patty Poppe noted when she shared the video with coworkers. I believe that love is a powerful force, and in fact, it's necessary to help us do our best work for our customers, our hometowns, and each other. Let's turn to a scene that we are following tonight. Breaking news out of El Paso, Texas. There has been a shooting inside of the Cielo Vista Mall. So far, this is what we know. One person is dead. 3 others are injured. A suspect has been arrested, and police say there may be a second shooter. Of course, we'll have updates online and on air. We'll also have more details coming up tonight on Late News Tonight at 11. And lawmakers introduced a bill today to increase the minimum wage for people who work in healthcare facilities to $25 an hour. And we're talking everyone from janitors to security guards. Meanwhile, the Hospital Association says that hospitals are struggling and can't foot the bill. But our political reporter Morgan Reiner found that those in favor say that'll help with that.
Raymond Meyer is a cook at a residential care facility.
Nutrition is definitely still part of patient care.
Beyond nutrition, he said food comforts the patients. One patient was feeling down, and the family told Raymond his potato leek soup would lift her spirits.
I made a special batch just for her. I came in the next day, and her family came up and gave me a big hug and said she passed. They said that was the last smile they saw on her face.
It's stories like that that keep him at the care facility, even though it means he can't care for himself.
I work my 8 hours, and then I go drive Lyft for 6 hours. It's hard to get the proper rest, get the proper care I need for myself.
It's why Senator Maria Elena Durazo is introducing a $25 minimum wage for all healthcare workers.
We know that California is facing a patient care crisis because we don't have enough healthcare workers like you looking out for Californians.
She said people of color and women make up the majority of the low-wage healthcare workforce.
It's not acceptable to build a healthcare system on the backs of underpaid.
But this bill faces strong opposition from the healthcare industry. The California Hospital Association said this crisis is not theoretical. In a statement, they said California's healthcare system is on the edge of a cliff. One hospital in the Central Valley has already closed this year, several others on the verge of shutting their doors, and dozens have had to reduce services just to keep doors open. Any proposal that would further threaten hospitals' ability to care for patients will only mean more uncertainty and diminished care for patients in every community in California.
Kaiser Health News reports that if this bill is passed, 1.5 million California healthcare workers could see rate hikes by January 1st of next year. We'll be right back after this break. You might or might not care about marijuana, but I'll bet you care about the crime in your community. And an announcement this week from the California Department of Cannabis Control, it caught our eye. So I want to go ahead and bring in Becca Habegger here because, Becca, this is the State Department that really oversees California's legal marijuana industry, right?
Yeah, Alex, and just this week they told us they're launching what they say is a program that's first of its kind in the nation. It's a $20 million grant program that will pay California cities and counties to open up legal weed sales. In other words, if the city or unincorporated part of the county where you live currently doesn't allow legal cannabis retail stores or delivery services, the state wants to change that, and they say crime is a driving factor.
The illegal market was and continues to be swath in criminal activity.
That's now former Alameda County District Attorney Nancy O'Malley speaking at a press conference last year about how the illegal market is helping to fuel crime. And yet, in many parts of California, the illegal market is the only place many people can buy cannabis. Even though the legal marketplace launched 5 years ago, nearly 2/3 of California's cities and counties do not allow any retail, whether a storefront, dispensary, or delivery service. That's because state law allows local governments to opt out of allowing cannabis businesses. In fact, the California Department of Cannabis Control says Placer, San Joaquin, Amador, Yuba, and Sutter are among 18 California counties where the proportion of licensed cannabis retail outlets is low compared to its share of consumer consumption. That's why the state is giving them priority if any local governments there apply for this new local jurisdiction retail access grant program, saying lack of access to California's legal cannabis marketplace threatens consumer safety and perpetuates the illegal market. And take a look for yourself on the Department of Cannabis Control's website is this map. In San Joaquin County, the unincorporated county allows just delivery, Lathrop allows just storefronts, and Stockton and Tracy allow both. The rest of the cities allow no retail. In Placer County, only Colfax allows sales. And here's a look at Yuba, Sutter, and Amador counties. Now, only cities and counties that don't currently allow any retail are eligible to apply for their share of this $20 million in grant funding.
And let's be clear, more cannabis retailers, that does mean more money for the state, right?
Oh, for sure. This isn't not about money.
This isn't not about money.
Yeah. But in this case, the state says the money that's not going to legal retailers and, yes, the state coffers in the form of high taxes on the legal market is instead going into an illegal market that they say is fueling crime and other problems.
All right, Becca. So I guess we'll see if legal sales lead to that decrease in the crime that the state is predicting. We'll have to keep following. All right. Coming up after the break, we are going to be taking a look at the Harlem Hellfighters, the untold story of the Harlem Hellfighters and the sacrifices that they made for our country. That's coming up next. Here are some of the other stories that we're following today. Lawmakers are introducing a new bill demanding oversight for homeless funding. The Homelessness Accountability and Results Act of 2023 is meant to provide more accountability and a framework to money that has been set aside to combat the homelessness crisis. It's something you already know we'll be following closely. And the 41-year-old man who escaped from a Calaveras County prison has been found and is now facing new charges. Law enforcement found Larry McDonald by Route 26 in Valley Springs yesterday. He escaped from prison back on February 2nd. A group known as the Harlem Hellfighters were an African-American infantry unit that fought during World War I and spent more time in combat than any other American unit. Yet, when they return to the U.S., they face criticism, segregation, racism, all from their fellow countrymen. Now an Elk Grove resident and granddaughter of one of those soldiers is keeping their story alive.
This is our history. This needs to be known.
A few years ago, Gina McVeigh of Elk Grove discovered a piece of world history in her family's past. She says it started with a chance encounter at a car dealership.
There was a gentleman in military uniform. So as we're sitting there, I told him, "Thank you for your service." And I said, "My grandfather fought in World War I. He goes, "He did?" I said, "Yeah, he won a medal." And he goes, "What kind of medal?" I said, "A French medal?" He said, "The Croix de Guerre?" I said, "Yeah, I think that's it." He goes, "Do you know what you have?" I'm like, "A medal?" He goes, "No, you have history."
The Croix de Guerre, a medal recognizing exceptional bravery, pinned on her grandfather Lawrence Leslie McVeigh by France.
He was drafted, so he was out of Harlem, New York, and that happened to be the regiment that he was in.
At the time of the First World War, black men were allowed to serve in the United States Army, but only in segregated units. Lawrence McVeigh joined Harlem's 369th Infantry, a regiment that would come to be known by many names.
They called themselves the Black Rattlers. The French called them the Men of Bronze.
But there was one that stuck.
The Germans were the ones who called them the Harlem Hellfighters, because they were scared of them.
So why were these Harlem Hellfighters serving under the French military?
France had been in World War I for a while before the United States.
The United States joined the war in 1917. By that point, France was devastated, and they asked U.S. General John Pershing for help.
Pershing said, "Yeah, you know what, I'll send you the colored soldiers."
In a memo titled Secret Information Concerning Black American Troops, signed by a U.S. colonel serving under Pershing, instructions were given to the French military on how black soldiers were expected to be treated. It called black soldiers inferior to whites and said they lacked civil and professional conscience.
Don't, acknowledge them or, pat them on the back. Don't eat with them and, mingle with them.
The French military was not segregated like the U.S. Despite the warnings in the secret information, African American soldiers were trained with and fought side by side with their French counterparts. And in the case of Lawrence McVeigh and other Hellfighters, they were certainly commended.
They were given one of the highest medals of honor from France.
The Smithsonian says the Harlem Hellfighters fought the longest and lost the most men of any American unit. They spent 191 days on the front lines and lost 1,400 men. After the war, they were all awarded the Croix de Guerre, but McVeigh won his medal earlier in the war.
My grandfather received his Croix de Guerre because he led his troops against a nest of German machine gun fighters until he was wounded.
McVeigh and the Hellfighters returned home decorated in honors from France, but their own country still refused to treat them as equals.
When they returned back from the war, actually getting off the ship, the white soldiers who met them were told, do not acknowledge them. Don't do anything. Just let them walk off the boat.
Black soldiers returned to the same segregation and discrimination as before the war. But for the Harlem Hellfighters, a ray of light. A victory parade in their hometown of New York City.
And you just see people dressed to the nines celebrating them. And that was the only celebration that they received.
Somewhere in this massive crowd was Lawrence McVeigh, who would hold on to his Croix de Guerre for years, eventually passing it down to his family along with other memorabilia.
So this is a picture of my grandfather that my grandmother had written hero on. And this was actually a postcard that he had sent to his sister, and they kept.
When Gina realized the importance of what her grandfather left behind, she contacted the 369th Armory in Harlem, but they didn't have the capacity to take everything that the McVeighs had saved.
So then I said, Smithsonian. I'm going to send it to Smithsonian.
At the time, the Smithsonian was readying their National Museum of African American History and Culture. Gina happily gave them everything she had: her grandfather's pictures, uniform, rifle, and the Croix de Guerre. They're all displayed there today, a monument to his life. What does it mean for you to see him honored in that way?
I think because he received no honor or acknowledgement while he lived, this is emotional for me, this part. It's just to let everyone know, especially in the environment we're in now, that we are important. We have fought for a country that didn't fight for us. We believed in you when you didn't believe for us. So to me, it's my way of saying thank you.
California passed a law that will automatically seal most criminal records for people who complete their sentences and don't commit a crime for another 4 years. It's arguably the most expansive new criminal records reform law in the country, and it goes into effect in July. That's the story that we're working on for tomorrow. Here's a look.
California passed a law that will automatically seal most criminal records for those who complete their sentences and don't commit another crime for 4 years.
I think it's going to not just lift people's spirits, but it's just make them feel better about themselves, give them a lot more confidence, and open more doors for them. So it's a big win. It's a big win for everybody.
Arrests or records that don't lead to convictions will also be sealed.
That's huge because that'll eliminate the biggest barrier all of us that have been in the judicial system to jump over. That is absolutely the hardest part about it, is that preconceived notion that you're still bad. And it's the easiest thing people can deny you for.
I think that's what really makes our country great, is the opportunity that you do have a second chance. But we need to make sure that the proper procedures and protocols are in place, that they are getting the rehabilitation that they need. 4 years, I don't think, is a long enough period to determine whether somebody has committed these types of heinous crimes, have been properly rehabilitated.
Now, there are exceptions to the law. Our political reporter Morgan Reiner will break all that down tomorrow. You can catch that right here at 6:30 on To The Point. I hope you had a great day. We'll see you here tomorrow night. Thanks for joining us. Hey, it's Alex. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I really love hearing from everyone, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. Reach out to me on Facebook at AlexBellTV, or you can email me at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send me a text message at 916-321-3310.